You are more interesting than you think. Most people think they're boring. I'm sure there's some people who find themselves endlessly fascinating. A lot of us think, oh, I'm just normal. But a lot of things about you and your everyday life that you consider just so uninteresting are really interesting, either because there's something other people don't experience or don't get to see, so it's something different, or it's a mirror that makes them feel less alone and that they can relate to.
Hello, potato friends, and dear watchers, and welcome to Alt Marketing School yet again, back with an interview about branding, about personal branding, and some storytelling in between, because today I'm introducing you to the fantastic Christine Gritmon. If you don't know Christine, well, today you're in for a treat, because she's going to teach you how you can step into your personal brand in a bigger and bolder way on social media. She's going to teach you how you can do it for yourself. And she knows a thing or two about personal branding. She's spoken on stages worldwide, and she's a frequent expert guest on podcasts, live stream, Twitter chats, and so on. She also hosts her own podcast that I was a guest of last year, Let's Talk About Brand, and its companion Twitter chat, Chat About Brand. She's also the senior editor on Social Media Pulse Community, a one-stop destination for social media professionals to receive training, tips, conversations, and connections. Today is going to be very exciting. We have a couple of fun stories for you. So I hope you're ready, because may today's class begin. Hello, squirrel friends, and welcome back to Alt Marketing School. It looks like today we had a false start, but we are now officially recording and ready to roll. How do we feel, beautiful and shiny, Christine?
We feel beautiful and shiny.
How are we feeling today? Well, aside from beautiful and shiny, what is the word of the day?
Oh, the word of the day. The word of the day actually goes with that. It's shine.
Literally let it shine. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I feel it was long overdue. I was on your wonderful show, and now it feels only rightful that I bring you in to talk about branding and all the good things when it comes to that as well.
I love it. It's an honor to be on, and I hope I do as well on your show as you did on mine.
Of course you will, because I'm going to start with one of my favorite questions. So this is a very random question, Christine. So I am genuinely excited to hear the answer. And I would love to hear from you. If you could choose one trivia category you would be really good at, which one would it be and why?
And is there a specific handful of trivia categories that you would suggest, or can I just anything?
Go wild, please. The wilder, the better.
I would do really well at trivia categories about specific media properties, like like The Princess Bride trivia. I do really well at. I actually went once to trivia for the show How I Met Your Mother, which I don't think they had over there in the UK. And I didn't do as well as I thought I would, even though I was obsessed with that show. But I think Princess Bride trivia I do incredibly well at. And in fact, back in around the turn of the century, there was a website that had daily trivia about the movies of director Kevin Smith. And I did really well at that trivia as well. So certain movies and things I've watched over and over and over again, I would absolutely slay if there were trivia on those categories.
And I absolutely love that you mentioned The Princess Bride, because if I'm correct, at time of recording, they were actually leaked that there's going to be yet another sequel, I think. So
what?
I saw it actually, fun fact, Christine, I saw it as a meme. So that's literally how I get my pop culture reference now, by using a meme. I was like, oh, wait, the meme is about the Princess Bride. Why is that? Oh, there's a new movie potentially coming up. I was like, wow, this is literally how I'm getting.
I haven't heard about that. I'm intrigued.
Check. It might be that it was fake news, but I doubt it. So go and check, everyone.
I have to check. I'm not sure if they could recapture the magic, though. We'll see.
I agree. That was a young Anne Hathaway. There was a lot of magic in that. So we'll see.
Oh, that's the Princess Diaries, not the Princess Bride.
Which one's the Princess Bride then? Jesus.
Princess Bride is from the 80s, and it's kind of like a fairy tale. Well, I mean, so is Princess Diaries. Fun fact about the Princess Diaries, though, I went to school with Anne Hathaway right after she made it, but before it came out. So she knew she was about to become really, really famous, but she hadn't quite yet. So she was doing college for a minute, and we acted in a play together. I played her best friend on stage.
I love it. See, okay, we got an amazing random fun fact by me making an absolute massive mistake. Also, caveat.
All good. You know what? They all involve princesses. It's all good.
Final caveat to that, by the way, is that I only saw that in Italian, so that's the problem. The names are always different. I don't know, fun fact, if people don't know, the titles are always different. That's why I thought it was that one. So The Princess Diaries is having a sequel, not The Princess Bride.
Got it. And I did hear that, and I hope that one happens.
I'm pretty sure it will. Now, going back, actually, maybe not to college, but maybe we do go back to college. Christine, what is the first job you had? And also, what did you learn from it?
First job I had, I was 16 years old. And I was a singing busgirl at an Italian restaurant. And the way it happened was a friend of mine lived above the restaurant. And so we were all just hanging out at her house after school one day. And then we went downstairs to wait outside because someone's parents were picking them up. And there was a boy I liked, and I was trying to impress him. So I started, singing opera in the street, very impressive. He turned out to be gay, but anyway. And there was an Italian restaurant right there. And someone said, "I dare you to go sing inside." And I said, "Well, I'll go sing inside if Paul carries me in." And he did. he put me down giggling. And the bartender, who turned out to be the owner, said, can I help you? I said, "My friend dared me to sing." He said, "All right, let's hear it." And I sung "O mio bambino caro," and I did well. And he said, "Would you like a job?" But the problem is, they didn't normally have singers. So I just kind of randomly sing an aria or an art song or something, standing there in between bussing tables, which I was actually really bad at. And eventually I lost the job because I called out sick at the last minute a few too many times to go hang out with my boyfriend because I was 16, and that's how it goes. So 2 things that I learned from that. One of them is just go for it. You never know what will happen. Like when I accepted that dare to go in and sing, I had no idea they would hire me to sing. I mean, I was just a random 16-year-old who could sing. So go for it, because you really never know what things will lead to. That's so random. And the other thing I learned is, tend to your responsibilities. I know going and hanging out with the boyfriend was fun and all of that, but I really should have been a bit more responsible, because now that I'm older, I realize, being short one bus girl probably kind of screwed over the wait staff. I mean, other people had plans and a workflow based on me doing my part. So that was kind of crappy of me to go do that. I'm still friends with the boyfriend.
But what an excellent story in general, overall. What an excellent first job. Like, we heard a lot of them, and a lot of them involve paper rounds. And I think, we're kind of sending that to the next level. And I love the lessons as well from it. So that's really, really fun. I'm not going to ask you to sing an aria, but I'm kind of tempted. But maybe by the end, we might surprise people with that.
I'm a little rusty.
Now, the final question before we jump into our classing session, which is our main section of the show, is... Obviously, we at Alt Marketing School are all about encouraging people to market to hearts, not to brains. So we like to ask our guests, what does making a positive impact on your audience mean to you, Christine, and why?
It means focusing on what will actually make their lives better versus what you want to sell them. And I know we've heard over and over again that you have to think of the customer, not yourself. You have to think of your audience, not yourself. Tell their story, not your story. I admittedly struggle with that because my thing is personal branding. I'm all about telling my story, but I have to reframe that. But especially, you have to realize that what you're selling ultimately does have to actually serve them in the way they wish to be served, not the way that you think they should wish to be served. You can't create a need. You need to fill a need that's already there. And in order to be able to do that effectively, it involves listening. It involves taking a step back from your own wants and needs and actually, paying attention, listening without speaking, or asking the right questions and being genuinely curious about what the answers are and open to the fact that it may be different from what you want them to be. So you need to be prepared for that possibility and prepared for the fact that you may have to change your whole game plan around if it's not really what they need. But, if you really care, you'll do it. You'll do what they need rather than what you want them to need.
I love that. And actually, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it brings back something that we forget about sometimes, which is actually that working in marketing can be really humbling. Whether you do it only for yourself as a full personal brand or self-employed, or whether you do it for a company or with somebody else within the company, you have to, sometimes you're either the person that has to recognize it for themselves or go and tell everybody else in the team, we might be missing the mark here. Whether it's because, as you say, the need, it can be also be that the need has changed. I want to mention that because you mentioned it might be that it's not the right need. It might be that the need has changed. It might be so many reasons.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of, it can be hard sometimes to step back and be like, yeah, we are kind of not doing the right thing for your ego if you're on your own, or going to your boss or to the rest of your team and be like, this is not what people want. So I love that you're mentioning that, because I think that maybe that fear stops us sometimes to ask the real questions that we should asking, or to investigate a bit further, if you know what I mean.
And a lot of businesses experienced this changing of needs, especially over the past 3 years. In 2020, needs shifted dramatically, and they shifted again in 2021. It was fascinating. I had my best year in business in 2020 because suddenly all these I was helping small businesses at the time, and all these businesses that had been sort of waiting and putting off getting online, putting off doing anything digital, they realized now, oh man, if we don't do it now, we're not going to have a business to come back to at the end of all this. So in 2020, it was very sink or swim. And so suddenly I did have people coming to me and asking for my help and actually doing the things that I was teaching them, because their business was on the line. They recognized that it was not a nice to have, it was a must have. And so that was great in 2020. In 2021, a lot of businesses of the type, again, I was working with tiny businesses at the time. I work with bigger businesses now, and executives and all of that. But I was working with tiny mom and pop businesses. And a lot of them in 2021, they were cautiously reopening. They were terrified that they'd have to close down again. They were making investments in things like, shields and whatever investments they had to make in order to reopen. And so they were not in a position to spend money on social media strategy. They were very both of them were kind of fear-based things. In 2020, they were fear-based in a way that benefited me, which was still not great. I like it when it's not fear-based. I like it when I'm helping people who have a growth mentality. And they were admittedly kind of scarcity-driven, but whatever. But then in 2021, they were really kind of traumatized by 2020. They were really terrified that they'd reopen and still lose their business. And so, the needs had shifted. What they needed was something I guess I didn't know how to give them, or maybe what they needed just wasn't me. And then I just shifted my market. I shifted my offerings. I said, you know what? I'm going to work with executives and other professionals instead of with these, small local businesses, because they didn't need what I was selling. And so either you sell something different to them, or you sell something to different people. So that had to be kind of a flex. And I think that everything's kind of still shifting. People are doing business differently than they did before 2020 in all sorts of different ways. And now we've got the dawn of the metaverse. We've got like all these things happening. So I think especially if you're in digital, and if you're in digital marketing, you especially have to be open to the fact that things are going to change. The sentiment of your consumer base is going to change. The actualities of doing business in 2023 is going to be ever changing. So yeah, got to be prepared to shift.
I love that. And it's one of those things is the kind of the love and the hate for the word pivoting, which before I do boxing. So before I was like, I know pivoting, you pivot when you're boxing, you just turn around so you can do a better like back hook. And then you're like, no, wait a second, pivoting now means something else as well. And then everybody in business started talking about pivoting, and I could see my clients just starting to literally retreat in terror, be like, don't say that word again, please. Yeah. But I think I love that.
We're getting dizzy from all the pivots.
I know, right? It's like a waltz that we didn't really agree to actually get onto. But I think there's a good lesson in there is like when you get used to that change, or when you accept that change is becoming a constant, which it is in a way, but I think for businesses it was a lot slower for a lot longer. I think you also make your life a lot better. You make everything a lot easier when you accept that change is more of a constant, even if the word pivot might still scare you, which we appreciate.
It's evolution. And unfortunately, when it comes to marketing, you have to evolve extra quickly.
I agree. Talking about that, class is in session. So now I want to know what you can teach us. I would love to see or hear from you one thing that you can teach our students and our listener, our dear listener, in 1 minute or less. What would that look like, Christine?
Okay, let's see. How fast, what key thing can I deliver about personal branding? All right, and go. It is so much easier than people think to put your personal brand out on the internet in a way that will actually get traction. First of all, it's simpler than people think it is. You don't have to invent something. You just need to figure out who you are, why people need to know that, who those people are that need to know it. So that's really what you need to figure out. You should not have a million different stories. People really worry that if they're not all things to all people, they won't be found, and they want to put as many, lines in the water as possible to get different fish to bite. No, you really do have to be unafraid to niche down so that that message is clear and it is everywhere. So that's all it really is. It's about figuring out, who are you? Why should people care? Who are those people who should care? And then making sure that everything you do is done through that prism. Your profiles are current and set up under that prism. The messaging you put out, the content you create, all ties towards that one set of facts.
What's the time score? Was it a minute?
All right. We're good.
Woo!
It was.
Well done. I mean, I'll tell you what, so far, since we introduced this section, you are proud of being one of the more concise, yet also like on point. So I love that. And you speak as fast as I do.
I try. That's because I know right here and right now, who am I? I'm Christine Gritmon, personal branding strategist. Why should people care? Because I break it down for you and I make personal branding an easy and not scary thing that can be really effective for you. And who needs to know that? Your students, because they're studying marketing and marketer, market thyself.
I love that. That might actually be the name of the episode. We'll see.
There you go.
Actually, talking about the who, we had a bit of a sneak peek conversation about question number 2. So we're going to get back to your who, and obviously who needs personal branding, with our second question from this section, which is, what is something that you unlearned recently that has improved either your life or your day-to-day work, Christine?
Yeah, and this is something a lot of people are unlearning recently, but I had a very profound experience with it myself in the last year, which is that when we think of personal branding, maybe we think of those annoying internet influencers, but a lot of times when I think of people with strong personal brands, when I think of thought leaders, I think of people who are solopreneurs, or speaking is their main gig, or they own, their own consultancy. I think of that person as being their own employer, essentially, when it comes down to it. And a lot of that is because the old school way of thinking really was, you don't want to be all about yourself when you're employed by another brand. You want to be all about them. You want to show loyalty. You want to, make sure that everything you do is theirs. And you don't want them to get worried that you'll, leave or something. So it used to be this idea of, you don't need a personal brand if you're working for other people. A strong network is a different thing from a personal brand. There was always an understanding that in business you needed a strong network, but it always stopped just short of the personal brand element of creating content as your brand, of doing things that put yourself out there in a bigger, bolder way. And so I think we've all been unlearning that the past several years. I actually credit the millennial generation with that, because they came in and shook up the workforce when they were entering it, and now they're the bosses. Now millennials are turning 40. So I think that they're creating some permanent workplace changes. And as a digital native generation, they've grown up in a time when personal branding was a thing that we, have all just had for all these years. I remember when I first saw Facebook, I thought it was crazy that a slightly younger friend of mine had hundreds of pictures up on Facebook. I'm like, how you have hundreds of pictures of yourself on the internet. That's crazy, which is so ironic now, given who I am and how many thousands and thousands of pictures of me there are on the internet now. But I think that there has been this way of spotlighting yourself heralded by social media, but of course it's gone way beyond that now. And so the fact that people who grew up with that and have always had that 15 minutes of fame situation in their lives, the fact that they are now the ones who are actually creating the workforce cultures. First, they came in and disrupted it, and now they are the ones in charge. So I think that's a huge part of it. The idea that you can be employed and still have a strong personal brand. It's in fact not only smart for you, it's obvious how it's smart for you. You always want to make sure that you're known and liked and trusted. Got to quote Bob Berg always, but also, it gives you flexibility. But here's the thing. It's also good for your employer. And this is something that employers are unlearning and that I had to unlearn because after 5 years of being self-employed, about a year ago the other day, I started a job for the first time in 5 years, working for someone else. And I knew when I decided to apply for jobs, I needed to work for a company that I knew wouldn't make me let go, not only my personal brand, they wouldn't tell me to tone it down, but would actually see it as an asset. That was really important to me. And so thankfully, because I have a strong network, I knew enough people in various companies to know which companies wouldn't mess with that. And Agora Pulse, where I work now, is certainly one of them. And I knew that because I had been an affiliate for Agora Pulse for many years. And so they knew the value of my personal brand. I knew that they weren't going to make me get rid of mine. In fact, when I do shows like this, when I'm on a podcast, when I'm on a live stream, when I'm speaking somewhere, they proudly shout it out on the Agora Pulse channels now because they're very smart. They like showing that their employees are active. They're in the industry and they are people in the industry want to hear from. They are sought out. Agora Pulse has great minds working for them. Smart companies are really starting to rock that now. They're realizing, first of all, these people who are good at their jobs, they should be developing thought leadership out there. That also makes the company look good because they have these smart people. It also spreads awareness of the company because those people have their own awareness. And so if the company's name is kind of tagged along with theirs, that's good for getting company name out there. But it also attracts good talent because let's look at marketing profs, for example. Ann Handley is their chief content officer. Ann Handley is incredible. Ann Handley has such a strong personal brand that I'm sure a lot of people think that she is purely self-employed. She's the chief content officer for Marketing Profs. And they have absolutely recognized the value of having her personal brand in their company. That's how I even know about the company, because I know her. And she headlines their event and all of these things. I mean, how do I know about Alt Marketing School? I know about Alt Marketing School because I heard about this fabulous Fab Giovanetti. And, I said, oh, what's her deal? I keep seeing her name around. And then I was like, oh, she has something to do with branding. And then I was like, oh, she's the founder of Alt Marketing School. Okay, cool. And then I started looking at Alt Marketing School. And so even though it's a perfectly awesome thing on its own that I probably would have found out about sooner or later anyway, simply because it is, a great company, I really found out about it because of you, because it's a lot easier to latch on to a person than it is to latch on to a company, because a lot of companies, especially since a lot of companies have similar names and they do similar things, but a person really stands out. A person sinks in. A person gets followed. And then that can in turn lead someone who's interested in that person and what they're saying to look into what that person is doing and where.
I love that. And I love what you mentioned about all of it, by the way. So it was like excellent. But also there's something that you mentioned within, obviously, following that person and actually looking at their knowledge. And I love they use Anne's example as well. Also, I have Amanda Navidad as a great example. She works for SparkToro.
Yes. Absolutely. She's a fantastic example. And even Rand, her boss, Rand Fishkin, he's a great example too, because he's been other places. The reason I know what SparkToro is because I followed his journey since before SparkToro.
Exactly. So I love that. And I think it really shows that if you are the employer, let's say, if you are the person that she's encouraging your team, then as long as your values are clear also to your team, I think that's important. As long as, you know that you can actually support them, as you say, and you know that what they talk about in their personal brand is relevant to your company, then obviously it's going to be a natural progression that if you talk about content marketing, they're going to look up what you talk about, and then they're going to discover that you actually work in a company that is an agency for content marketing or whatever that is. So I love that. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm so happy that so many companies now are encouraging that a lot more, because, as you say, is an invaluable asset. I think your people, your team are a very still underrated asset in a lot of companies. That's where I'm at. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And it's something that a lot of companies are still working to unlearn. And I think there is going to be a real divide between the companies that learn it and the companies that don't, in terms of their presence and their brand's presence in their industries.
I love that. And now the final question from this section, just to kind of hand on a high, is looking at somebody else. So what is one of the biggest lessons that a teacher, a mentor, somebody that you can look up to has taught you?
It's funny because this person probably doesn't really realize what an impact she had on my life. I should write to her sometimes and tell her. But I first developed my personal brand while I was employed, actually, at a different place as a journalist, a local journalist. And I had started, and going out and networking in our community became something that I sort of made part of my job. And then they later eventually promoted me, so it was actively part of my job. And I started going to a local group for business women. And one of the speakers there, I already had in the back of my head the idea of starting my own thing. I already had in the back of my head the idea of maybe leaving the paper where I was very happy and starting my own social media consulting thing. But I was terrified. You know, I was used to the comfort of a job. But then another big thing was I had imposter syndrome in my brain. I had imposter syndrome telling me, but you don't know anything. And you certainly can't prove that you know anything. How are you going to go get business if you can't prove you know anything and you actually don't know anything? And I was slowly but surely learning the truth, which is that you only need to know more than the person who is paying you to help them. These people knew a lot less than I realized. The fact that it came easily to me did not mean it did not have value. But so to get to the event, we're at this event and this woman gave a talk about standing in the power of your worth. And she explained that your worth is not how difficult something is for you. It's not even how hard you have to work at something. It's not how complex it is. It's how valuable it is to the other person, which kind of connects back to what we were talking about at the beginning about how you really have to think about the other person's needs, you know, what they need, the problem they need solved and how they need it solved versus what you're trying to sell them. And so she was just like, that idea of it's not about what you think it's worth, and it's not even about what it would be worth to you. It's about what it's worth to them. And recognizing that absolutely has value, and that value is probably a lot higher than you think it is. You have to stop thinking about how you would value it and start thinking about how they would value it. And I think it was at that very event that I finally, for the first time, told someone that I was thinking about starting my own business, because the idea of charging for something that I thought was so obvious, I thought was so clear, felt almost dishonest. It felt almost sleazy, which is very funny now looking back to think that I thought helping people learn how to do social media was somehow something without value. But I did because it came easily to me. And so her idea of stop looking at it as how you would value it, because your pain points are not their pain points. Your skills are not their skills. And if they need something that you have, there's a value to that. So get it. Get that value. And that really did change everything. And it really just helped me progressively shut off the parts of my brain that were trying to hold me back from doing it, and eventually led to me starting Christine Gritmon Inc. in 2016.
I genuinely believe that lessons like this or reminders like this, we cannot hear them enough. Because regardless of whether you're starting out or you want to start out, or maybe you want to make a change, or maybe again kind of step more into your worth, is a good reminder. Because I think there's always, you talk about up leveling. Which one was that? Was the book that talks about up leveling? Oh, I forgot about it. I have the,
there's a few.
Yeah, I have the name of it on my tongue. I'm gonna say, The Big Leap or something like that. See, I have the book, but when you think about up leveling, is all about at some point you will outgrow anything, whether it's the services you offer, whether it's again even just literally like the pricing or maybe your current job. So I think all those times, go back to what Christine just said. And obviously what she said to you as well, because I think it's a very, very powerful reminder for everyone. So thank you for that. Now we've got more quick fire. I promise there's not going to be a timer for this one, but it's a quick fire. I'm going to give you a quick this or that, and you would have to choose between two things, Christine. So I hope you are ready, because we're going to start out with one of the hardest ones for me, but we'll see how you get along.
All right.
Ready?
Got it.
Okay, so first one. Spotify playlist or podcast?
Spotify playlist.
Nice. Is there...
I'm bad. I'm a podcaster. I should be saying podcast, but I'm being honest.
I love it. What kind of playlist? If you have to say like top two kind of type of kind of music playlist that you go back to again and again, what are they?
It's funny because the music that I consider myself as liking is like, hard alternative rock. But when I put on a Spotify playlist, I need to get pumped. So it's a lot of Lizzo.
Honestly, I am the same. It's scary how similar I am. I was like, I can listen to AC/DC on one side, but then Lizzo's got something. When you need the little like pop power-up song, she's the one.
Yeah. Pop power-ups are generally what I go to Spotify for. It's stuff I don't necessarily own, though I do own lots of Lizzo. But it's stuff I don't necessarily own, but it's there for a quick hit of getting me pumped.
I love that. So again, little pick-me-up with Lizzo, anyone, if you need it. Second one, voice notes or texts?
Texts.
Nice.
I have a handful of friends who are into voice notes, and they know that me listening to their voice notes and responding in voice notes is a sign of my undying love and affection, because I hate them.
Maybe one day they'll wear you down. I generally had the same. Now I can use them, but I'm a bit like you. Like if I had to choose, I would always choose text. So I hear you. Now, carousels or reels?
Carousels.
Nice.
I'm warming up to reels, but carousels.
So the next one is going to be interesting. TikTok or YouTube?
YouTube.
Nice. Oh, memes or audio trends?
Memes.
I know that if GIF was in there, that probably would have been the winner, but this is... We share a love for GIFs as well, which is excellent. Last but not least, Christine, newsletter or Twitter, if you had to choose?
Oh, I am obsessed with Twitter.
Again,
It's been a hard time for me these recent months, because I love Twitter.
And I think at the time that you're listening, everyone, we're still probably going to be in these murky waters, but I think...
Hopefully Twitter's still around.
Oh, gosh. That's the other thing. If not, we'll have to change.
Knock on wood.
I will actually have to change, if not the question, and kind of make it something else. But yeah, we shall see. That's the thing. We're kind of foreshadowing.
Let's record an alt version.
I love it.
Just pop that right in.
Just add something else instead. Awesome. Well done for surviving the this or that. Now we're kind of slowing up the pace just a tiny bit. I have a few more questions. The first one is one of my favorites, I'll be honest, because I love to find out about new or maybe, unconventional tools. So what is one of your favorite underrated tools when it comes to your work, whether it's in the marketing sphere or maybe personal branding or social media? What would be one underrated tool that you can think of?
Because the tools that I use the most are not underrated, because everybody uses Canva. Lots of people use Agorapulse. I would say I really love the Notes app, the humble Notes app on my phone and on my desktop, because even though everyone has all these fancy versions and they've got Evernote and they've got, whatever they've got, I mean, this just syncs between my laptop and my phone automatically. I can share some of them with my husband, which is great. So they automatically update on our phones. You know, if you're in a very Apple-based environment, I'm sure there are apps that do things better. You know, we used to keep our grocery list on a Trello board we both had access to. But you know what? It's so much easier to just go into our notes. Humble Notes. I love the Humble Notes app.
Fun fact, love that you mentioned that, is honestly, aside from actual tools, like specific tools, is the number one. Like if I have to look at everybody, like everybody looks a bit guilty and they're like, I have to say Notes app. And I'm like, yep, there he goes. It makes sense.
It's free, people. It's free.
And as you say, you can make it yours, which any tool that allows me then to customize it and make it mine in whichever way is one of my faves. So I'm
going away in a couple of weeks, and I have a note stock about packing that I still have from the last trip I took. So I'm changing. It's a different type of trip. So I'm changing it. I'm moving things around, but it's very helpful that I have a place to start from, and it's right there. And I didn't need anything fancy to do it.
Love it. What is the last picture you took on your phone, Christine?
Ooh, it was this picture that I took of us. I'm sitting here at my desk, and I took a picture of actually with my computer and my camera and my ring light and my messy office and all of that behind it, you know, so that I can put on Instagram stories later that I just recorded your podcast. And then when it actually comes out, I'll also use that picture again and be like, look, I was on Fab's podcast. So I'll probably use the show graphic for that one, but maybe a bit of both, you know.
I love it. Excellent.
Yeah. Everything is content. So, you know, living is content. Take a picture of what you're doing. That's your content.
I stopped myself from saying be real, but it kind of came up into my head. Just be real. Just be real.
I had Be Real for 3 days and I just couldn't figure it out. And then I said, you know what? I'm 42. I don't need to.
I'm not going to force myself.
I've learned enough.
That is very true. Again, I actually never downloaded it, to the shock of a lot of people, because I always will try a new platform. But I've been like, I actually share all of my stuff in other places quite naturally, and I'm happy to do it there. That's kind of how it is. I don't need prompts. I don't need more reminders for me to share content.
I don't think people need to see more of my daily life. Just saying. You follow me. You know how I roll.
They would love it, but I think they're fine. No, I understand. Actually, going back to social platforms now, since we talked about Be Real, I know it might be still a touchy subject based on what we just talked about, but what is right now your favorite social media platform and why?
It is a touchy subject. It's because it's Twitter. I love Twitter. And I'm really sad about what Elmo has been doing to it.
Elmo!
That's what the haters are calling him. We're calling him Elmo, which is terrible because he's not a lovable, fluffy 3-year-old red monster. He's just a monster. No, it makes me sad because he doesn't get what was so lovable about the platform, and I hope he makes good on his promise to get a different CEO and to take a step back. But because I really do love Twitter, I developed the best relationships there. It really was responsible for my shift to personal branding because my personal brand took such wings there on Twitter that it's where people started saying to me, you know, you should focus on personal branding stuff because you're great at it. And it's not like I'm not doing this stuff on other platforms, but Twitter was where it first opened my eyes to the possibilities and the power of all of that. However, if Twitter goes away, I love them for different things. I have a lot of fun on Instagram, but I think I'm going to get more serious about LinkedIn this year.
Nice. It's something that I heard everybody saying, by the way.
LinkedIn's getting weirder in a good way because it's getting a lot of the Twitter traffic and people are saying, you know what? I feel like the weirdness of Twitter, Tumblr is a better place to put that. Put it on Tumblr, put it on Reddit, put your weird Twitter self on there. But then the connection making and all of that, I feel like that really is happening on LinkedIn more. And it's making people bring more of their full selves to the platform in a way they maybe didn't on LinkedIn before. But again, my personal self is more on Instagram and Instagram stories, trying to get myself to do reels. I'm not great with it. I don't like editing. I have a degree in film. I know how to edit. I don't like to do it. So, Yeah, but Twitter. I love Twitter.
So who should we follow on Twitter then? If you have to give us one recommendation, who would it be?
C. Gritmon.
Not even breathing. I like it.
All right, but besides me, Christina Garnett is a great Twitter follow. She's that Christina G. And she did a great thing a couple of years ago. She tweeted out, I think she had just gotten a big influx of followers, so she was kind of spreading the love. And she said, hey, if you're a marketer on Twitter and you have less than 1,000 followers, comment on this thread, and everyone should kind of check each other out. And that's being labeled kind of the birth of marketing Twitter, as it were. Obviously, marketing Twitter was a thing already, but it really did help bring a lot of people together. A lot of professional connections were made on that thread. Some romantic connections were made on that thread. I'm sure there have been marriages, but there were a lot of connections made on that thread and through that thread. And so, and Christina is a community manager. Community is her whole jam. She manages community for HubSpot. So she lives it. It's who she is as a person. So she's a great person to follow. She's very supportive. And, she's also a nice person. I've met her in real life. She's lovely.
Excellent recommendation. And I'm a big fan of when I see those threads, when there's a lot of spreading the love and kind of like recommending people. Actually, fun fact, we did that for our top 100 that came out this year.
I saw that.
And it was just because we had some people in mind that we've been following, we've been seeing when it comes to marketers. But then it's also like, well, I do have a network of incredible people that will be able to bring some other individuals into the mix that we wouldn't have known otherwise. And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to be as successful as it was. We had to wade through 350 people in the end.
Wow.
It was hard to make it down to the 100. But so again, thank you as well, because talking about people that amplified, you also amplified that for us. And that was a great thread. Lots of people that we discovered as well. And then it was nice because then other people then followed each other. So I definitely see the power in it. And it's such a simple thing to do. People don't even think about it. It's such a simple thing to really make the most of your network and support them.
Yeah, people who shine a big shiny light on other awesome people are my favorite kinds of people.
That should be on t-shirt.
Like you.
Oh, bless. Thank you. That should be on a t-shirt, by the way. I like it. As well as marketers, market thyself. I like that too.
Yes.
Talking about messages. If you could broadcast one message onto everybody's phone, what would that one message say?
You are more interesting than you think.
Oh, that's a good one.
That prevents a lot of people from creating content, from showing up online, from even just, putting their personalities out there, even in real life. People feel like, oh, well, who am I? I'm boring. Like most people think they're boring. I'm sure there's some people who find themselves endlessly fascinating. A lot of us think, oh, I'm just normal. But you're more interesting than you think. The day-to-day minutia of your everyday life is more interesting than you think. This seems like a weird example, but I was talking to the social media manager for Auntie Anne's Pretzels, and one of the things that gets the most response is when they just show making the pretzels. And if you work at the pretzel stand in the mall, you probably don't think that's a very interesting part of your day. Well, guess what? Millions of TikTok viewers disagree with you there. So, and I mentioned before, the last picture I took was literally just what's going on my laptop here in my attic. So, you're more interesting than you think. The details of your life. I know people like to make fun of social media, but I don't need to see your breakfast. I don't need to see your cat. I don't need to see your cat's breakfast. But a lot of things about you and your everyday life that you consider just so uninteresting are really interesting, either because there's something other people don't experience or don't get to see. So it's something different. It's a window into something different. Or it's a mirror that makes them feel less alone and that they can relate to. So you're a window or a mirror. Either way, let the light through. Let people see.
What a way to end the episode. Now, we could just all walk away and just drop the mic and just kind of shimmy out. But that might be a bit odd. So we shall instead first, thank you, first and foremost, for always shining your light. because that's one of the things that definitely came across today. Being shiny, the word of the day, and shine. But also tell us a bit more about what people can find out more about you. You dropped it here and there, but let's give us one more shot. Where should people find out more about you or ask you any questions if they have any?
Sure. Well, I am the only Christine Gritmon out there. Christine spelled with a CH, like usual. And Gritmon is Grit, like when something is gritty, like sand, and MON, like Monday. So Christine Gritmon. I'm Gritmon.com. Christine Gritmon is very long, but it does redirect. So Gritmon.com. And I'm C. Gritmon on Twitter and Instagram. Christine Gritmon Inc. on Facebook. Christine Gritmon on LinkedIn. Christine Gritmon Inc. on YouTube. And I have a podcast called Let's Talk About Brand. My podcast on the Adweek Podcast Network drops every Monday with a video version of the podcast on Fridays. And in between, we have my Twitter chat about brand on Tuesdays on the week's topic.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, dear listener. As always, let us know what you think. In the meantime, is all for today. Class dismissed.